Hello, welcome to the Square-Based Show with your host, Rob and Val, bringing you the hottest news and also the coolest ideas for Warhammer the Old World.
The coolest ideas?
Yeah, I think we come up with some pretty cool ideas.
No, I think so. I think I think the ideation on this show is top notch. How are you, Rob?
Listen, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I'm trying to keep my head down. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm using my hobby as a place to escape things that are happening, and I'm using that as also a way to be excited. Big news coming out of the TSN Arena, which is where I stream from, but also where we run the events and stuff for the Old World. Is we have just signed off. Now, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but I've just signed off on tree number 1 for our forest.
Oh, that is a huge deal, chat. I mean, and also people watching on YouTube.
And also people in the podcast. Hello, everybody.
Rob has been struggling to see the forest from the trees.
It's a real thing.
It's good.
So basically what we're going to be doing, we'll do the announcement in a couple of weeks, is we are going to be selling hills and forests for the Old World, because last year when I set up for running all the events here at the TSN Arena, the forests were some STLs we found online. They were the best ones we could find. But forests, or trees at least, are a fascinating problem for 3D printers in that they become more spindly and more elongated the further away from the core that they are. And then obviously the vibrations and everything, they become a real problem. So the hills, I think we nailed. They're pretty good. They're quite large, but I think that's okay. They're quite fun because it's the hill and then it's a base of a hill. So you can take the hill off and you can have a flat surface. Similar with the trees, it's 3 trees with pegs. So then what you can do is you can just remove the actual tree footprints, a bit like the original kind of GW forest, but it doesn't leave the ravine in that would lead, and it isn't also as rocky, because those are also quite difficult to stick a tray of miniatures on, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a bump, little bit of a declining civilization main thoroughfare feel to them.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, long story short, it's actually taken. I think we're on test print 16, which is pretty wild. Like a full
called iteration, baby.
Yeah, we did like the original tree, and also like there's a bit of a meme on my show, at least, like when we do Honest Wargamer stuff, and maybe it's bled through to Square Base, I can't remember, between conkers and horse chestnuts and sweet chestnuts. It's quite complicated.
Yes,
there's a lot going on there, but we made it a conker tree. So actually pretty happy with that. So
that's why it refuses to be conquered, buddy.
You know it, baby. You know it. So it's pretty exciting. Tom's painting up the rivers, so that's all stuff that we're going to be able to sell in the future, which I'm really excited about, because as a TO initially, I found it a real problem to get the right things.
Yeah.
You can buy a hill from what they do, like Battlefield on a Box. That's a company. They do a hill.
Yeah.
But it's green. Yep. So if you have a not green mat, also, it doesn't really work for a tray of minis. So hopefully this is by gamers for gamers.
5D terrain, baby.
Oh, 5D terrain. Yeah, exactly.
5D.
Anyway,
in 1080p.
So that's actually taken up a huge volume of time, like printing, giving feedback, printing, giving feedback. So that's been fun. And then just been prepping for all the events that are coming out. And also have started work 3D printing my dragons. So... my dragons, which I'll be painting in February. So excited about that.
Very wonderful. That all sounds very exciting. I've been repeatedly failing to play any Old World. Literally, I've had scheduled games for the last 3 weeks, just completely failed every single time. Tonight is the night.
Who are you playing?
A friend. Friend from SBOT.
Oh, nice.
Who's actually a brand new player to the Old World, a Bretonian player, bringing the heat. Going to be facing down some Peg Knights tonight.
Oh boy.
And then I'll just have to find a way to talk about how they're not a problem. There's nothing we need to do about them.
I like the idea. I like the idea that as they charge over on turn and face, and then 3d6 charge, or not 3d6 charge, 360 charge in another direction, you're going to be like, yeah, actually, that's fine.
That's fine. It's fine.
That's fine.
I'm just interactive game experience.
I was going to wheel. Oh, is that too much of a wheel to charge? I won't do it. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yes, we're still on GW Tournament Pack Balance Patch Watch 2025 at this point. No War Karma article so far this week, which has been a bit changed from previous weeks. They kind of had done something every week, so maybe there's a building up pressure. They're building up steam to drop on us, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. We should bring that up. Yeah, we did mention during the FAQ show. I'm not sure. I need to go back and check out all the comments on that and do some answers and replies. But yes, I think we're still kind of in that. It's 22 days into Jan. I have said end of January, like kind of mid-Feb, we'll start looking at like what maybe a community pack or Ponk, like me and Val chat about it. Val super, like not super hot. That's I don't want to over egg it, but definitely something we've talked about a lot right behind the scenes.
Yeah, about how we might respond, and I think it's not even necessarily for me about like this is the only way to play. I think it's like what is something that we might look at as a format. Like we have the square-based standard right now, right? Which is just sort of some minor alterations to how armies are selected, and with simplification of some missions to make them very less random and things like that. We have packs from the square-based Open Toronto, the SBOT online. We have packs from the TSN Arena. We got lots of different formats and things. So yeah, maybe something that adds ranking and flanking to the old world might be appreciated from the community. However, there's even other stuff I need to go back and look at. Like I've been implored this week, that forests are not dangerous. I've been implored, which I like to say I don't agree with, but I'm willing to discuss it. I'm willing to discuss. That's an open platform. When I'm running events, I like the old way, which is that they're just dangerous to other things like cavalry and chariots. Although chariots, it's already dangerous for them, but definitely make it dangerous for cavalry, not necessarily your open order and your close order guys. But running through forest is probably a little dangerous, especially carrying like we've been told not to run with scissors. You're carrying a giant sword or an axe or something. You're running through there. You're going to trip on a root. That's dangerous. Sounds dangerous.
It's also the old world. I assume the forests are full of nightmares. Like
remember when forests always had a random rule?
yeah. But you would only find out when you got in it. That was awful.
Yes,
but it was kind of fun, though.
Forget every single game. So yeah, that's I think again a terrain pack thing. A format type thing that can be discussed. There's also the terrain, like around the idea of having some nice standardized terrain that we can sell out there. There's the idea of creating some maybe updated map packs. When the mission sets come out, which is what we're assuming happens, we will do map packs as well. I think I'd like to do an A/B set, which would be really fun. So if Val can do a set, I'll do a set, and then when we run an event, we'll be using map pack A. Which is super cool, really fun, because like we could put designers' notes under why the stuff is where it is or why it's doing it, which is super cool, especially as lots of people have been using the map packs because we put them free up online like week 2 of the game coming out, I think, something like that. Week 1. No, that was you hyper focused on that one. That one was Eye of Sauron. We're getting this done, and they're sick. I love those cards that you made. I have a pack of them, and honestly, the hybrid of of things that we've sort of promoted and innovated on the show. I really love the terrain picking system as a hybrid between fully player placed and fully preset terrain. I think it's a really cool compromise. And also I think people tend to agree. Those who play it seem to be like, it's fine, which is the best answer you can get from a tournament going public is like, it's fine.
Have been involved in competitive scenes, both of us, all different game systems. The terrain and the terrain is just the number one row all the time. If you just get like, I think it's like sound engineering, right? Someone's like, "How's the sound engineering?" You're like, "Yeah, it's fine." You're like, "No, actually, it's brilliant." Because
yeah, you're at 11 of 10 at that point.
Yeah, if you're not thinking about it and it's not a thing, it's brilliant, right?
Yes, absolutely. There is one last thing I need to gripe about too, which is that I've been striking out left, right, and center, trying to go to friggin' events. The locals around here keep dropping events on dates I just can't go. I was really looking forward to returning to X-Planet Games, played with my man Lionel out in Mississauga, and then he went and dropped an event on February 15th, day after Valentine's Day, and on a weekend where I'm going away with my family. So thanks, Lionel. February 15th, a nice little RTT there. I said I wouldn't promote it. Not that I am right now, but you're a jerk. Last time he did this.
Where is X-Planet Games? Just in case, for some reason, I want to go.
Mississauga, Ontario, the swarming metropolis of. So there's that. And then I've been trying to set up a tournament known as Warhammer the Resurrection, which is something I've been trying to run for years, on Easter weekend. April 19th and 20th. But I'm trying to run it at this place called Torchlight Games.
Do they run their own events? Like, are they like inundated with events they're running?
I suspect that they have built it and people have come. That's my problem. I was hoping that they were going to build it, have a white elephant, and be like, "Oh God, we're losing so much money. Please come save us, Val." That's not happening. That hasn't been happening. They seem to be very successful, which is a problem when you're trying to run a third-tier miniatures wargaming tournament on Easter weekend.
Damn it. Bring back the fuck bunker. Bring back the fuck bunker, I say.
Fuck bunker's a 3D printing sweatshop now. So like that's not happening. So anyway, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to get something going in the spring out here in Southern Ontario. Hopefully, just pin, make your maybe a little like placeholder in the old calendars out there for the calendar bros, sisters, and MBs that are watching. April 19th and 20th, going to try and run a GT of some kind somewhere. Might have to go cap in hand to stupid Lionel and be like, "Hey, how about here, jerk?" And that's, I think that's pretty much the roundup, Rob. I've been pissing in the wind here.
Well, big question is, what army are you going to be playing with tonight?
Good question. I think I'm going to go Nuln. I think I'm going to try and, I want to go to bed. So win or lose, it'll happen fast.
Just get the first turn, shoot away, have the best time.
And I feel like the thing that Pegasus Knights probably won't enjoy is, like just getting filled with Outriders. I think that would be great.
I think that would be good. They need that. That's important. Okay. All right. Do you know one thing I did do this week, actually, talking about Old World? So Monday nights, I've started doing a stream where I play Total War Warhammer 3. And I started a Cathay campaign.
Good call.
Which is super fun. So we definitely need to make our Cathay units video, because it was quite fun. I was like, what? As I was like recruiting units, I was like, what the hell is this? What is this? So that was quite a fun little, because I'm assuming the miniatures are going to be 1-for-1, like as in designs, because obviously Games Workshop helped them with the designs that they have for Cathay in the Old World, in Total War, sorry. So I'm really looking forward to us like having a little bit of a chat about that, because that was fun. I found the campaign a little like genuinely not that interesting. But hopefully it we level up, because when you start a game on Total War, you're playing with the pretty boring units, and then you're like, what's my main guy do? You're like, he turns into a dragon, and that's fun, but then it kind of removed the identity. This is an interesting thing. Like when you have like a Scarbrand character, like Scarbrand is Scarbrand, but when you had I was playing with Wambo, and he just turns into a dragon, you're like, well, obviously the dragon's sick, so I don't care about the dude. Does that make sense?
interesting meta commentary on the old world in general right now.
Oh yeah, that was the other funny bit as well. Because as I was like talking with the chat, and we were like saying, I was saying, because I was, when you're streaming, you are like aware that other people are watching, so you want to make sure it's entertaining. And I was just saying to myself, I was like, this is pretty boring. You guys are just watching me recruit like peasants and spearmen, and then I just go into every battle and I just turn into a dragon and wallop everybody. And then I was like, and then I like realization hit me in the head, and I was like, the old world. I see. But also, it also could be why we might not see massive changes to like points on dragons or monstrous stuff, because if they are they have just released, but we're only a year into them having the Bone Dragon for Tomb Kings out there in the wild. Then if they're about to release another kit that, if the leader ends up being, some Cathayan character that turns into a dragon, which is likely, and I would bet the house on, then that's probably, they probably want you to play with that. So it's, do you know what I mean?
Here's the deal about that, Rob. It's going to be the worst dragon in the game because it won't be mounted. It'll be a special character and it won't have 3 saves. So that's going to be problematic for.
So 300 points. Let's go.
It's going to be 1,000 points. I don't know. Who knows? Let's not be cynical. I'm not that guy. Actually, that's where I want to be too, right? I want to be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
So aside from resisting foreign aggression, also looking at how maybe people are perceiving. What a segue!
What a segue!
Well, look at how people may be perceiving things.
Yeah.
About the game specifically, SBOT though.
Yeah, if you have not been keeping track or are new to Square Base World, thank you for joining us. We are cute. Yes, that is correct. But we mainly Val, and in fact, 100% Val and not me. Actually, Val and his gang, his plethora of T people, have run 2 online Old World events, and as numbers, the largest events in the world to date. But
it's probably handled well. I don't know. There's the German team tournament that might have beaten it. I don't know. I never followed up on the.
I don't think.
By the way, this is hilarious. Do you know that there's 2 WTCs now?
Yeah, I did.
That's funny. That is just funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe that's for another show. Also, SBOT 3, by the way, folks. Just before we get into this feedback from the survey. The SBOT 3 is going to happen, but as we've indicated, we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now with the game, and we also have an Arcane Journal that should drop soon for High Elves. We're hoping that we see at least a tournament pack and stuff. So we're so SBOT 3 is sort of in a holding formation. If you're frothy for that, it's not that I've forgotten. It's not that we're not going to do it, but we're just sort of paused for a moment. Also trying to develop some tools to make matchmaking and other things a little more streamlined so that the event can appear to be better run, because I would like that very much.
Appear to be, though. Like, not actually. That's the goal.
If there's something we're learning right now, perception is reality, Rob.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what you want.
In fact, actually, we've learned perception isn't even reality. Okay, cool. So Val and his team have been running a bunch of online games and events, tournaments is what they are, sorry. And then after the last one, like many TOs, which is my favorite kind of like thing that I've ever seen happen in the Warhammer event space, where someone's like, hey, give us some feedback. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, great, we've got great feedback. We'll change it next year. It's exactly the same next year. We're going to go through some of that feedback right now. And then you're going to tell us some of the stuff that's interesting to you for the people who are playing online Total War. Is that cool?
Online Old World. But
old
yes.
World. Oh, yes, old World, sorry. Online Old World, which is, I think, relevant to people who are watching, because I think there's actually some really interesting info here, because this is just like getting a really big tournament bit of feedback, and then we'll just discuss it.
All right, so basically, so the temperature I was trying to take with this series of questions was just trying to gut check my own. I feel like I have a sense of the tastes and preferences of the Warhammer tournament going public when it comes to changing the game. Because this is a fraud exercise, guys. If we were, because I know there is a crowd out there that's like, why don't we just fix it? And depending on how I feel in the morning, I'm either in that group or not in that group. We have been very hands off about things like comp, or as I've been calling them, mods or patches, and deferential, oddly, to the studio to try and maybe come back with a second pass of their vision. And this is written before the most recent FAQ came out, and did some good stuff.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Fuck you, Sister Thorn. Before we get into this information,
Sure.
I got a hot take. Live, you're gonna see some live production, studio audience in chat and people watching. Why don't we just put a brand new, just this section questionnaire on this video? Link it so everyone watching live right now can have their 10 cents as well. You can leave comments, obviously, but we can just have a bunch of people throw in all their responses. The great, we could call it the great
Old World Survey.
Old World Survey. We can. I was
gonna pitch this idea. I thought you wouldn't like it, so I didn't suggest it.
I love knowing. Yeah. I love knowing what people think about the game and stuff. Like, it's great. Yeah. I already know what I think.
Great, and we can like spam various Facebook groups and Reddit channels with it, and we could just be fed our own assholes via the. It's gonna be fun.
All right, I'm in. Let's go. High five.
All right, so here we go. This is the sample size of the online gamers. So this would probably be a sample of more of gamers. These are folks who are most interested in the game, because there is no hobby when you're playing online. Although I do think, as we've seen, the SBOT 2 was won by the same person who won SBOTO. So there's IRL crossover for sure in this. But
just for people who don't know, one of those was an in-person event and one of those was online. Even though they sound like he said the same thing, those are different things.
Like a certain oligarch, I only name things I only use SBOT. Okay, so I don't use X. I only use SBOT. So every single thing I do on this show will somehow break down to the acronym SBOT. I don't know why, but it will.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question came out hot with, overall, how do you think the game should be played? And this is, I think, a key question here. So our options were vanilla, as close to the rule book as possible, just as JTY intended. Some changes to composition is important. Or we can go further. We should be nerfing units that are too powerful with points or rules changes. And then finally, why stop there? We should address any issues in the game to make it play better. And this one came, I think, a little bit surprising. Mainly that vanilla, so like no changes, just play it, just raw dog in Old World, was not really considered an option by the vast majority of people, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's the, I mean, I would say, I don't know. Like, I think the red section maybe could be passed out a little bit. Like, as in some changes. I feel like between blue, like between vanilla and we can go further, I think that there's a scale there to some degree of people that move around. But I'm not surprised by that either. Nearly 10% of the people are like, let's just play it out the box, which, if you think about it, is not too dissimilar to all the way the other side of the fence, which is, why stop there? Like, let's change the whole game and rewrite it ourselves. That, those feel like the two fringe edges of what it is. And I think that, I feel personally like that comes from people wanting to play the game that they have bought into and have been sold. I think that there's always an overarching kind of, like, people are like, I absolutely want to do what that thing is. So I think I'm not surprised by that. I don't think, really.
Yeah, I think mostly, though, what this says to me is that, and we've already seen it, right, with TOs that have attempted to make changes, there has been like a whoa reaction to folks who add a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You're drugged with power. And then there's, but there is still, so this is just very much a Goldilocks situation, that it does put TOs in kind of a spot where people don't expect to play vanilla. In fact, they would very much, 70% of people would prefer very much to not just play the game as it lies. But there is definitely too far, right? So like finding that balance is interesting, and I wonder if sort of the way that, and I guess that's some changes, is which is what we've kind of done. We have our own FAQ, we've got our own army composition format. This is maybe in support of that, and then going further than that, trepidatious.
Yes.
Trepidatious. But this is also a sign of people liking what we've done, I think, with format, and therefore maybe they don't know what they want. You know, that's maybe people don't know what they want till they've been sold it. Maybe
people. Also, people like my current feeling is people sometimes know what they want and they're stupid.
Fair.
Like right now, I'm not sure any data makes any sense anymore. But like that's kind of that's not an old world issue. Yeah,
we've been post-truth since 2001. So,
hashtag based. Hashtag based.
Yeah, very based here. Okay, so anyway, I thought this was cool insight as a general direction. And I'm now excited for the Great Old World General Survey. That's gonna be sick. I'm gonna immediately hyper-focus on that after today. So the next one, there's a rumored tournament format coming with additional rules for how to build armies. If they're released in time for the next SBOT, what should we do? Options here were play it straight out of the book, as JTY intended. We owe him to try. Use judgment, but apply a soft touch to any changes. And use only the good bits and create a format that is best for tournament play. And so again, here we're seeing around 75% saying that it's either going to be heavily modified or will probably need some soft touches, even to something brand new. Which I think, based on what I understand about this rumored tournament format, is bang on what we would need to do.
Yeah, I think 75% of the people being comfortable with some sort of change to some varying degree is positive. And I think that's just people being really conscious and understanding what is going on. I think some people really enjoy the degeneracy of like straight out the book in some ways. Like, and I actually really advocate for that, as you and I are rules as written people. As
by necessity,
by necessity, yes, by necessity, because that gives the best common language between different groups of people trying to play a game. That has to be how it is. As soon as you get into rules as intended, someone is like, I think they intended this, and then you're arguing the color of the sky.
And as we learned in the FAQ, even the designers don't know what they intended, and they're just going and they're just raw dogging.
No.
So
I want that. I'm gonna get that as a button I press, and sometimes just a screenshot of the FAQ where it just says no. And it's no.
Actually, I wish they just said no more often. But the other thing, actually, just so from like a zooming out perspective, like Rob and I came to Old World. Me personally, for my most recent gaming experience was trying to get people to play 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy. Pardon me.
It's true. You got me to play it.
I got you to play it. Oh, that was funny. Oh man, that was great, man. Oh, that was so much fun. Anyway, and then of course Rob, has previously was one of the biggest leaders in the community for AOS before destroying AOS 4. And
needed to be done.
I should stop making that joke because it's hurtful. And Rob is obviously a very big AOS fan, loves AOS, and I came from 40K. So I came from organized 40K. And in both of those games, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're playing out of the box at this point. There is no comp to AOS and 40K anymore. It is run and managed entirely through Games Workshop. That's actually pretty wild.
The one thing I would say, though, is that for AOS at least, I couldn't speak for 40K, they do have some of the TOs who run the most populous events giving advice and information. Like, for instance, we had terrain packs finally for Age of Sigmar at the launch of 4th edition, so which is great. Because like that's great. Because which is why I think they're so valuable for the old world. Because it's like, oh, cool. There you go. I'm like, use the terrain pack, and then people are like, I understand. So no one turns up to any events are not understanding what the game format is going to look like. Now, there's a really good question of like, doing an A/B set, so there's variety and change and a bunch of stuff. But yeah, you're right. There's no deviation from the core game, even though everyone would love some sort of iteration deviation. I think maybe, but also it really. While that's kind of good, it does mean that the events are all the same. Now, I've only just realized that in this conversation. It means you can't do things like the Rivers event. Because even the other day, I was like, could we do 3,000 after the 3,000 point event we did for Old World? I was like, could we do 3,000 points of AOS? And everyone was like, nah,
no one would show.
I don't think anyone would show. And it's kind of weird.
And that's actually one of the cool benefits, I think, of Old World is that the culture of it comes from pre-2017 Games Workshop players, for the most part, which were used to having to solve their own problems, which were used to having their own comp systems, multiple versions of them, some of them very complex, like Swedish comp, was essentially a point system layered onto the game. There's all these things that people... Again, out of necessity, because the game was not did not work vanilla very well. People responded to that. The communities responded to that and coalesced around different versions of the game, and they were played differently all over. And of course, there was still a community of people who believed in playing it as close to raw as possible. But I feel like the majority, and this is a vibes-based judgment on me spelunking through old forums and listening to old podcasts, it did feel like in general, though, the community did coalesce around changes. Specifically, we'll get into some of the things that you can definitely see are approved and believed in. So with the tournament format, even as something brand new, the assumption here from this particular sample is that we will need to make modifications and adjustments to it, which I think is probably accurate.
Okay.
And here we go. GW said last year that they would look at doing points changes and balancing once a year or so. By the way, I've gone back to look for that, and I might have hallucinated that. I'm not sure where I thought that came from, but I truly believe they said that they would look at making bigger changes.
Have you not been able to find that?
I've never been able to find it again. So I can't tell
if I made it up or not. Let us know if you find it.
Yeah, like I seem to recall them saying that they would regular FAQ the game and then once a year take a balance pass. So that essentially signaling to people that this wasn't going to be like 40K and AOS, which are, quickly rebalanced as things come out. There are genuine patches that come out and change how factions work, give new rules, take rules away, that kind of stuff, which I think reasonably for some, especially in a game where you have to build and paint your bloody armies out of miniatures that cost a heck of a lot of money, can be frustrating because by the time you get an army on the table, it's different, right? So the slower pace was signaled certainly by the makers of Old World, and I, for one, I'm down with that, and we have adhere to that too. Like, again, we're over a year now, no major changes to the game. So what should we do with the legacy factions, aka renegade factions, if they're left untouched? And so the options were nothing. They are what they are, just as JTY's manager intended.
Hey, love that. Love what you've done there. I love because I half read that and I was like, you're about to throw JTY under the bus, but no, you got his back. Good work. Yeah,
absolutely got JTY's back. The community should apply a soft touch to address glaring issues with their rules, or the community should update the legacy armies in line with any balance changes seen.
Wow,
in the core
that's 80%. 80% are like they're in, even if we have to do it ourselves. They're in.
This was very gratifying to see this response.
That's sick as fuck. That's sick.
The next one is a follow-up to that. Would you play an event that used rules for legacy factions that were modified by the community? The options are absolutely not. Depends on how far things are taken. Justice for the Renegades. Yes, I would. And then finally, only if the guy who wrote Warhammer Armies Project does it, which is a little joke. I was sad that only got 2.9%. I was hoping that there was someone out there with the credibility to rewrite the Renegades, but apparently not.
Okay, so a genuine question from me to the people watching this video, right? So let me outlay the problem. So let's say me and Val said we will update these when they need to be updated, as an example, right? Because I'm the person currently talking. Let me tell you, and I talked about this on a previous video, and everyone got mad at me and said, you can't believe you're giving up on the Renegade factions, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, that's not the case, but people will get mad. Like, it's divisive. People, like, don't want someone doing that, and they get mad at them like that. Like, so for as an example, let's say
there's a risk to us doing something like that.
Yeah, there's a risk to us. Like, you would need full-throated support, and you would need people to understand, and that's like a huge problem, right? It's the problem also the game designers at Games Workshop face as well. Sure. But they don't have open forums. They could just release the thing and you just suck it. Like, get wrecked, nerds. So I would love to see and hear your responses in the comments to exactly that question. Because, like, as an example, let's say second edition comes out in January 2026, like me and Val think. They don't include the Renegade faction, so we update one of them. We update Chaos Dwarfs, and Chaos Dwarf end up winning the first two events, right? Are you now furious at us? Like, Are you mad? Because, you're not, like, beating down the doors of Games Workshop about the dragons. I am. But it's a genuine adult question to an audience. What do you think? How do you feel? Like, and understand that to be able to resolve this 80% of people who want something to happen, 80% of the people want something to happen. Like,
so actually 94%.
Oh, do that? Wait.
Oh, sorry. Would you play an event that used rules for the Legacy faction? Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's 83%. Sorry, it's 83%. Yeah, in order to, 83% of the people is an overwhelming majority. Like, as we've seen in the world, we are rarely this committed,
aligned on something.
Aligned on something. So you would need someone to do it, and then genuine question. Everyone in the world, and also other content creators as well. If you are other YouTubers or other people who watch our show, you need to answer that question. You need to at least throw your hat in the ring and have the conversation. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to touch it, right? Because do you know what I mean? Me and Val have talked about this off air, so I think that's an important thing to say. Yeah, I think
the way in my head as I'm conceptualizing these things, for me, it's providing options to play the game. This actually brings me right back to first year political studies / political science class. And there was one lecture that I wasn't way too stoned for and actually showed up to. And it was a conversation about the interaction of power, influence, and authority. And if there's a Venn diagram, Games Workshop has dominance of all three. They have the power to just do whatever they want. They have the they have the authority to, because it's their game. And they have the influence to get people to do it. So, when we look at Renegades, they attempted to use their power to say, you're not allowed to play with these guys. Here they are, but you can't use them in tournaments. But their influence has definitely led to an underplaying of the Renegades. Also, because the Renegades are kind of boring. They're not great to put on the table sometimes. So except for those legit diehards out there for the factions, that's kind of all we're seeing, I think at this point with the Renegades. And also, frankly, there's lots of cool stuff in the core factions to play with. So maybe they're not entirely missed. But that being said, I think that these two questions do lead me to believe that there is space out there for a format that would include modified Renegades. And I can't understate enough that I think us, if we were to do this, we would provide an option. And I understand why at TSN you might want to run a standard event, but I would love to run a non-standard event here in Tirana, and I'd be willing to be the lightning rod for that, because F it. There's scarier things to try and defend as far as ideology goes right now, including reasonableness and liberal values. But anyway, we'll just move on to another statement. So Renegades, general broad-based support to try and keep them alive. But again, finding that balance will be interesting. And in the old world world survey that we will be releasing with this video will hopefully get a bigger take, because this is a response. I think in total there were let me just see here in this one. Let's see here. So this is a majority of these are players who played in both SBOTs, and then most of them came from SBOT 2. So so that's the most recent online tournament that we ran, and it's a sample of about 70 players. So of that group, there's probably 300 unique players. So probably not enough to hang our hat on this as far as the sample size is concerned, but it's still, I would say, indicative of interesting way people think. And I'm 100% coming to you straight up. I wouldn't make decisions entirely based on this survey. And so I love the idea of doing a bigger one.
I love the idea of doing a bigger one.
Where was I? Shoot, sorry, I'm scrolling. Scrolling.
Well, so currently on the screen it says missions in a tournament should be.
Yes.
Okay, and it's whatever JTY wrote in the book, not popular. Based largely on the book missions and minor changes to make them less random for tournament play, 34%, and then whatever the TO cooks up, 64%. Now, what I think is interesting about that is not the fact that people are yep, I just want to have good missions that I can play. What they want is hey, make up some crazy shit.
Go nuts.
Yeah, go nuts. Go wild. Get fruity. And I love that.
And this is actually, again, in that sort of, when you're a tournament organizer and you're trying to thread the needle on doing too much or too little, there are things that are like electric fences, and we've already touched on them, trying to make core changes to Raw is an electric fence. It's dangerous. Modifying armies or things like that, modifying rules, messing with the game is fraught. All right, it is something that you have to have some hubris to do, and that's why we haven't done it. Because we just love the community. We want the community to not be, like you said, doing things like that has a huge potential to be divisive. It blew my mind that something that you have as a TO for some just freehand to do what you want with is missions, which is wild because you can really do a lot with the game.
Yeah.
With missions. And so this is something that we have mostly played basically what we've done with missions is kill points. There were some modifications I made to scoring for SBOT 2 and also for the Square-Based Open Toronto. That were very, very minor.
Yeah, a special shout out to Toby, who helped us in those. We ran 3 events in the first 4 weeks of the Old World that was sold out here, and then he helped us push the differential system to get us so that we ended up with a much better gradient on the differential system for the 20-0 system. So shout out to Toby. That's also something that we developed as well.
And Toby's differential is now used by tournaments the world over, including the Las Vegas Open, which just happened. That's
adorable. Toby's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
There is some influence, obviously, when as organizers of a lot of events, but also we have a lovely platform that people have blessed us with. Square blessed us. We have the opportunity to influence things, but nonetheless, missions, TOs out there, people are open to them. There are definitely, ways I think Rob and I would approach doing missions. But yeah, this seems to be something that is the domain of TOs. JTY barely registers here as having any credibility whatsoever as far as missions are concerned. One person standing for book missions, which is hilarious.
Yeah, but he's done it 10 toes down. He's like, this is it. This is my life.
So we're getting into now terrain. Now the terrain is something interesting because this is actually, as we were talking about with AOS and 40K, terrain, as far as standardization goes, has been the final frontier. So we saw core rules sort of getting homogenized and addressed using 40K as language here in 8th edition, which was 2017, 2020. When we got to 9th edition, we saw missions become the domain of Games Workshop. They came out with their own standardized mission set. Before that, we were still using community-based missions. And now finally, through the US Open and stuff in 40K, they are getting close to standardized terrain with one community interlocutor there, which is the WTC, the Teams Tournament. Has a very popular sort of tournament set and format. But either way, whether you're playing one of the two, you have a much more standardized terrain environment out there in that particular game. And so this, of course, does not exist necessarily in Old World. So these are questions here regarding terrain. Terrain at a tournament should be asymmetrical. Rolling for deployment should matter. So that means that, maybe go ahead.
I just wanted to say on the notation about terrain, while the concept that it's standardized the world over is true, the reality I don't think is true, especially as you tend towards like more casual games. So like one of the major problems for me as a TO, but me as a player, and I think for many other people, is that Games Workshop are like, they're like, 10th edition has arrived. These are the terrain layouts. Everyone needs to Perspex base or do some sort of base on their terrain. And everyone's like, I don't have that or these things or even know where to buy MDF squares, like find a mate who can cut you them out. So already that's a problem. Like with Age of Sigmar as an example, they release the maps and then you're like, okay, well, this map always has 4 forests. And seeing as most venues have like 2 forests per table, no one ever plays that mission because it's got 4 forests. And then there's like little pieces, and you're like, well, okay, little pieces have never really existed before. We've always had medium and large. So now, do I get any? So the definitely like the Games Workshop singular events, which now they're only running 3 of next year, and even at Warhammer World. This isn't necessarily like stuck to, like venue owners aren't necessarily going to be like, someone turns around and is like, hey, by the way, venue owner, there's a new terrain map for 40K, and the guy's like, cool, I'm not spending $5,000 on terrain for you. It's just like, you can use what we've got. So I'm just saying the concept of standardization is definitely real and definitely is followed as much as possible, but I still think people run into a problem trying to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the view I have from 40K is definitely different than AOS. And that's because in 40K you have essentially one terrain type, and that's a ruin.
Yeah.
And interestingly though, in parallel to, and again, I'm not sure how it works in AOS, but you have abstracted terrain, where essentially all terrain is area terrain, meaning that you interact with it by touching the base of the terrain. And that sort of came in the previous edition of 40K and is continued into this one, from what I understand. So it's not as hard to comply with that because you probably already have ruins. And then also there's a huge third-party terrain world out there that just cranks out like actually pretty fancy stuff now. Like they've got pre-colored, pre-printed MDF terrain made by all kinds of different companies. So you can get to standardization a little easier, I think, in 40K at this point, because for the past 10 years, it's only been ruins. And now they basically, the biggest thing is adding a base to the ruins, right? So I think that makes it a little different. Whereas when you have multiple different types of terrain, like you do in AOS and even Old World, then it comes down to what do you actually have on hand. So terrain standardization does become more difficult. I agree.
Yeah. I think like just as a kind of point on that, and I know like everyone is like, Jesus, these two people, what the, like they said the word terrain and they lost their minds. And I'm like, it's once you get into the organizational stage, or even if you've played a lot, it's genuinely something that impacts you more than you would think. So it's just worth pointing out. And it's massive.
It's absolutely massive, like absolutely massive. And this is something that was like, again, one of my favorite things about Warhammer in general and playing in events and stuff, especially, in Old World, we're starting to see events happen around the world. And, SBOT's an international event, but we're starting to see big events sort of pop up in the major Old World playing areas. And the thing that, in 40K was a big difference always was the style of terrain. For example, when I was first playing in Europe and the UK, it was much more open. So there was a lot easier to just shoot your opponent. And in the United States, driven by certain organizers there was a lot more terrain. And there was also terrain that's sort of very much changed the game because you could enter it and hide in it and stuff. So those games became very, very different, just based entirely on terrain and mission set. So so like if there is a way for, you know, the event organizers of the world to consider, okay, so like if my community is starting to get a little bit burned out on the current meta as it stands, well, two levers you can pull immediately, I think, to try and influence how the game is played without being worried about, you know, getting swatted and doxxed online, is you can use terrain and you can use missions to modify that environment, and players seem to be on board with that idea. This very limited set. And again, we're going to have a broader survey to support some of these ideas.
Let us know what you think in the survey.
Yep, in the survey or comments, or just flame us, whatever you got to do. But anyway, so this one was, I'd say, majority believe symmetrical. Symmetrical and balanced, I shouldn't lose the game on a dice roll. So that means that if I have a hill, you have a hill. If if there's a forest on one side, there's a forest on the other side. Essential idea. You want to mirror the terrain. This does gamify things, of course, in the sense that it's definitely setting it up more like a chessboard. You have the same amount of squares, but it does, again, remove the ability to lose real quick, which is, by getting a real bad side of the board.
Yeah, but you don't want that.
Then, however, there is still a fairly big group of people who believe in asymmetry. And I think a lot of those types are in the, it tests your generalship type of frame of mind, and I think that's fair. So maybe some of the maps should be asymmetrical. I don't know.
Or maybe we could do an A set that's symmetrical, B set that's asymmetrical.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think SBOT. So like when I was running the Square Base Open Toronto, thanks to my friends over in Ottawa, I forgot to promote something. I'll do it at the end. Stay tuned to the end for an exciting announcement. Please remind me. Their terrain was just by default asymmetrical. He didn't have the same amount of everything for each table. He had the same things for every table, but he didn't have the same amount of all the different terrain pieces. So the map packs that we created for Square Base Open Toronto were asymmetrical. We have a set. So that was just, but that again was by necessity. What did we have? This is what we're running with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then finally, currently the SBOT uses terrain maps that feature only forest, hills, and passable terrain. So this is the stuff that was created for the TSN, and we've been using it online. Would you like to see a new map pack that brings in more terrain types, i.e., this is before the FAQ, low linear obstacles, buildings that can be occupied, and dangerous terrain patches? The answer, overwhelmingly, 90% said yes, we want more varied terrain. Cool.
Yeah, that I'm super on board with that as well. Like, as we've seen from the rivers, I do like the idea of doing a bunch of concept stuff to make things. And again, just like, we can go thematic, and we did a show about this before. I think it's easy, obviously much easier to do online, and it's even more difficult to make like a standardized set. But I would really love to do like a Lustrian, especially theming them as well. This is the Lustrian map pack where the forests are not forests, they're swamp. Well, no, they would be forests, sorry, or the jungle, and then obviously you would have those would
be dangerous.
Yeah, those would be dangerous. Then you would have, forests are dangerous. Then, maybe the hills though will be swamps, right? And you've got some, and I think that's all stuff that me and Val have talked about offline, and the stuff that we're going to be doing. But you got to do the Forest Hill stuff first, and then so slow rolling it, I guess. But I think that's stuff we would love to do. And if you're excited about that, then when we do start launching our terrain, let us know by helping and picking some up. I could even show some people one of the hills actually that we painted up. Do you want me to show people what our hills look like, or should we do it another time?
Let's do it another time. Let's save that one in the chamber. That's a tease. That's a tease. Okay. When we're ready, or when people can buy the damn thing, it does look good. Okay, we can make it the same size as the forest.
So the low linear obstacles a problem, right?
Not really. I think so. My view on the FAQ that just came out is that it was not ready to publish, and so I think our FAQ will just reflect that. Yeah, and we will just simplify it. That's all. So I don't think. I think again, the division in the community is unnecessary and didn't need to happen. And so we can solve a lot of those problems just with our next FAQ. And then once they come back and clarify what the hell they meant, then we can adopt whatever GW says, which in general is what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. To answer a question in the chat, because I think it's a question people ask as well. What battlefield is symmetrical? I agree that it can suck to have a disadvantage from terrain, but this is a simulation of a battle. Overcome and be a better general. No. What battle had exactly the same amount of resources put into it? It's like, did you bring 700 dudes? I'm going to send the rest of my dudes home. I'm not like, this is not, while an approximation and an abstraction of what a battle is, ultimately,
we're playing a game.
We're playing a game with supposedly some sort of like equality or equity between me and the other person, where our skill represents it, not the random luck of the draw. Like I've got 2,000 men, you've got 1,000 men. So there you go.
And to underscore a lot of these points, what we're talking about is events. When you're coming to or even leagues or club nights or whatever, we're not talking about what you do with your pals. Because what you do with your pals can be really narrative driven, because both sides can, before the game, be like, I really have this cool idea for a battle. Like it's going to be a group of dwarves holding out against like waves of orcs and goblins. Let's see what happens. In that case, obviously your train's probably not going to be symmetrical. We're talking about a very specific scenario where two people have, taken time away from home. Have paid for a ticket, and we want to ensure that they get as close to a game that is in their control as possible. So this is not all Warhammer, by far. This is not the way all Warhammer needs to be played. We would never say that. We don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I don't believe that.
There you go. This is for playing Warhammer with strangers, essentially. How do you set it up so that both two people who haven't talked about the game before it happens, how can you set it up so that both players are most likely to have a good time? And I think by removing random variables as much as possible, that's how you ensure a good game. Maybe not the most accurate simulation of a battle, but that's not necessarily what a match play situation entails. An asymmetrical battle sounds to me like a scenario-driven battle, a narrative-driven battle, which is awesome, and I really should do more of, to be quite frank.
Okay, well, that's a great series of questions, and I'm really looking forward to see what everyone who has watched this and let us know answers in the responses, and we'll do another follow-up video on that as well, which is really fun. I like the idea of that. We'll try and spread it far and wide and get people to and if you are watching this, share it with your local gaming groups, share it with your club, share it with the people at your event, so you get some idea. And again, we'll be really public with the information, because it's not our information. We're willing to do the legwork like we've done on many other things in the past for the community, but it's something someone has to do. It's the same with anything. So if someone does it, it doesn't happen, right? So you got to get it done, which I'm super excited about. So great work on doing this one, and I'm super pumped for seeing what like the wider community thinks. You got any predictions?
Yeah. I would bet this is broadly representative of taste and preferences. Yeah, I would say so. Although again, when the folks and I think I will control it by asking some questions about people. So like definitely I'll add like, how do you play the game? That kind of a thing. Because that'll be very interesting to see. I'd be curious to see how many people who are going to be where we put this out, i.e. Discords and Facebook groups and Reddit and those kinds of things, and this YouTube channel. I'd be curious to see how they actually are interacting with the game. Are they playing it? Like, that's going to be an interesting question right off the hop. Like, how many games do you get to play? How do you interact with Old World? Do you go to events? Would you consider going to an event? That kind of stuff I think would be really great. So, there's a whole raft of additional sort of demographic questions, and that way we can see a split on how different segments of the community maybe view how the game should be managed and played. Because I would bet that's where the biggest differential will come is the people who maybe play in their own groups versus the people who play with strangers. That
makes a lot of sense. Super excited about that. Pumped is what you could say. Pumped.
Super pumped.
Especially as I was able to get 15 minutes of terrain talking. Love it. Terrain talk, a new YouTube channel coming from me. Where I don't even make terrain like a hobby YouTuber. I just talk about it. I'm like, hills. What the fuck?
I mean, genuinely, you have created multiple sets of trains for multiple sets of game systems. You could have a terrain channel, which is also generally more lucrative than any of the topics that we tend to talk about.
It's going to blow your mind, people, but people will care more about terrain than they do other stuff we talk about. But we talk about it anyway. We do it because of you, and we do it thanks to the people on Patreon who support us.
Yes.
Couldn't do it without you.
One plug. I got to do one plug.
Yes, I know you got to do a plug, but I'm going to say it first. Worried. It's for Canhammer.
That's right. Canhammer Team Tournament.
Mm-hmm.
There's a team tournament in Canada happening in Ottawa. It's 10 teams of 4. And I love the Canhammer guys. Again, they support me. And it's the 40K version of this event was my favorite event, hands down, no doubt. Teams of 4. Shout out.
I've been 3 times and only had to have my heart reset once. Pretty good.
That's right. Yes. But that was doing coverage on this one. Hopefully Robbo comes over and does not get an irregular heart rate from just playing in an event. That's reserved for me.
Oh, I will. I'll be so excited.
So Rob and I Rob, are you coming? Are you booked for it?
I'm booked for the Easter weekend that we got coming.
Oh. But not May. Okay, cool. Well, anyway,
we'll
clarify. We'll clarify. We're working on. Regardless, we've got this team event in Ottawa, first week of May. It's the first weekend in May. I think as of right now, there are a couple of teams still up for grabs. So I do encourage you out there to put down a deposit, get a team together, and come out and play, because teams Warhammer in general is I think the best format for playing. And it's very awesome. Run by very good people. You get lunch with your ticket. It's a great venue.
Food's actually, let me just say, food's great. Just gonna put that out there. One of my favorite things ever was the first Canhammer I went to. There was a couple of people doing all the service, like the people serving the food, and then I got to the giant bowl of fruit and veg, and it was just full to the brim, absolutely nothing. And I was taking stuff off it, and then the lady was like, "Why is no one taking this?" And I was like, I'm afraid these people are not keen for that sort of stuff.
Maybe if you put it between 2 slices of bread, it might go a little faster. But
anyway, all right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Look after yourself. Stay well. See you soon, and stay square.